Jai Shri Krishna. Welcome to this series on Bhagavad Gita discussions, in which we are going through verse by verse, chapter by chapter, Srimad Bhagavad Gita, the 700 verses, and having discussions with them. This program, Bhagavad Gita discussions, this series is in fact produced by the International Gita Forum Caribbean and IETV. Our major presenter is none other than the consultant to the International Gita Forum Caribbean, Senior Pandit Vickramaditya Maharaj. Welcome, Panditji, as we continue our discussions. Sitaram. We have completed chapters 1 to 3, and today in our program number 9, we now continue with chapter 4. As we begin, I invite Pandit Vikramji for his comments, and then we proceed with chapter 4.
Welcome once again to this discussion on the Srimad Bhagavad Gita. So far we have had tremendous responses, and we hope that we are able to reach you and to deliver the message of what the Bhagavad Gita really represents. So we begin chapter 4, entitled Jnana Karma Sannyas Yoga. Shri Bhagavan Uvach. Imam vivasvate yogam prokto vanahavavyayam vivasmanave praha manurikshava kamyabravi. Lord Krishna says to Arjuna, this yoga that I have been imparting to you, I have already done this before, Arjuna. First, I taught it to Vivaswata. Vivaswata is another name for Surya Deva. And Surya, in turn, taught it to his son, who was Manu. And Manu passed it on to his son, who was Ikshvak. Evam parampara prapta mimam rajarashayo vidu sakala neha mahato yogo nashta parantapaha. And this yoga, this teaching, came down generation after generation, Arjuna. And through time, it started to decay. When this knowledge started to decay, Sa evayam maya tedya yogo prokta puratana bhakta sime sakha cheti rahasya maheta duttamam. This very science, this very yoga, today, Arjun, I impart it to you. One, you are my friend. Two, you are my devotee. And this science, this yoga, is a great secret. Now, this verse tells us that if the Lord could talk to his devotee as being a devotee and a friend, let us reverse it. The devotee now talks to God.
But before Arjun responds, I just want us to just reflect on what Lord Krishna says here. If we look at it, this information, this message, conveyed to Surya Bhagwan, then faithfully transmitted to Manu, then the other generation, and he says that this information continues to be transmitted. But at some point in this chain of transmission, there has been failure.
Right.
So that even when we look at our families, our lives, institutional knowledge, even Pandit, if we look at Pandit families, there are some Pandit families like yourself, others who can trace their history back to generations. And then what happens? Over time, some members of the family begin to do what? Fall away from duty. And this results in this sort of situation where whatever institutional knowledge the family had is lost. So as we begin this 4th chapter, while we are talking Bhagavad Gita, you as a family, each of us with family traditions, with family institutional knowledge, if we are not careful to ensure that succeeding generations are taught, and we in fact don't leave it to chance, but ensure that transmission takes place in a manner that is organized, not just hoping that your son will learn, then we may avoid situations where loss like this takes place. Imagine this information starting with Bhagwan Surya. We are being told through successive generations, because why would it be lost? It has to be that there has been failure to transmit.
That could be one excuse, one reason, but the other reason could be people need change.
People need change, I agree, but the fundamental, what Sri Krishna is saying here from my perspective, is that this information became lost. So needing change, the fact that he has to come back and reiterate this information suggests that even with change, the fundamentals that are needed here, he is suggesting, was lost.
Okay.
So let's proceed.
Okay, we revert back to verse 3, where the Lord comes down and says, you are my friend, you are my devotee.
And hence he is?
No. The Lord says, he comes down to Arjun's level,
right,
and says, you are my friend,
right,
you are my devotee. I am now saying, let us reverse that.
Okay, go ahead.
Now that the devotee wants to connect with God, how does he connect with God? And there are 5 things that are used.
Sure.
1, Shanta Bhava, that you worship God as the king. Then you have Dasya Bhava, where you serve the Lord. You become the servant, he becomes the master. And then you have Sakya Bhava, where you become a friend of the Lord. Then you have
Sakya.
Then you have Bhat Labhya, where you look at God as a child.
As Yashoda would have.
Not only Yashoda, when Parvati was questioning Lord Shiva, he says, how do I see God in the world? The first line that was uttered by Lord Shiva is Mangala Bhavana Amangala Hari, Dravahu Sadasharat Ajira Bihari. Look at him as a child playing in the yard of Dashrath. So you see the Lord as a child, and then you have the last stage, which is Madurai. Madurai means that your soul is connected with God. This is a never-ending journey. Now, Arjun, hearing these words of Lord Krishna, he responds. And he responds by saying, the 4th question, remember I said earlier on, there were 18 questions asked by Arjun. This is the 4th question. Aparam bhavato janama parama janma vivasvataha katameda dvijaniyam tvamadava proktavanati. Surya Dev is in existence since this world was created. And we were born around the same time, we are about the same age. So how is it possible for you to impart this knowledge to Surya at the time of creation, when the world is 500 trillion years old and you are only 122 years old? How that possible? See, that is a mistake a lot of people make. If you go back into the history of India, when the invaders came in India, around 600 and something, they saw temples that were thousands of years old. And they couldn't understand that. So they believed that the world was only 600 years old. Beyond that, they couldn't go. They couldn't understand. So what Lord Krishna is saying to Arjun is something higher than he could ever imagine.
Pandit, there's something I want to interject here and add. You're making a very, very critical observation, because the recording of time, we are living in a Western world, and we basically use Western methods. And because we are basically in the Western world, even our concept of history has been impacted upon significantly by Western thought. Now, when we talk of issues like these, the age of the world, how many years ago Bhagavan Sri Krishna was here, these things, the Bhagavad Gita itself predates all other scriptures. It's an amazing thought. Huh? And I'm not talking about the Vedas, I'm talking about the scriptures of other religions. So now, when an invader comes into your country, and they in fact have control over the resources, and they in fact conquer you. Now, if they want to impose their thought process on you, and they need to firstly get you to believe that whatever you have does not predate them, then you know what they will do? And that's what has happened. They will speak of Ramayana as mythology. That is not real. That is just stories. Bhagavad Mahapuran, story, mythology. And it amazes me, Pandit, that you have even Hindus who will refer to their own history. Itihas means history, as stories. So this idea that is being raised here by Bhagwan Sri Krishna and Arjuna, don't think it is something that is just, in a vacuum. Even today, and that is where Hindus are rewriting their history. Remember, up to recently, they said Krishna was a mythological figure. They said Ramayana didn't exist. Ram didn't exist. And you find now historical evidence. The bridge is there. The city of Dwarika has been found. And so the attempt to treat Hindu history as mythology is beginning to crumble. Because what we speak of and what we refer to here is very, very old and antique and real. Panditji.
You see, something a little simpler than that. How could you find bones of animals? And they say it's hundreds of thousands of years old. So life wasn't 5,000 years ago. If we accept, we accept the Hindu scriptures that says we are in the 24th Kali Yuga.
Right.
And if we add the 4 yugas together, multiplied by 24, it is 155.4 trillion years old. And nobody could debate that. That is not up for debate. That is according to the scriptures. And if you don't believe that figure, you shouldn't be preaching Hinduism.
No, but you see, you're right. But what has happened is Hindu society was under successive periods of foreign domination. Islamic conquest, and following that, the British. And what has happened is that you find that history has been, it's as though what a Hindu says is mythology, but what the West says is history. And even some Hindu historians who are, it's an ongoing debate and an ongoing issue to be dealt with, where this idea that Hindu times and issues that we raise and events will want to be treated by the West as mythological. But in the East, we know them to be history. And what we have to do is change this mindset that has been impacted upon us by foreign thought.
As we go along in the Gita, you'll come across certain words, and I'll show you how it has changed. So we begin with Lord Krishna now. Hearing this question of Arjuna, he responds to Arjuna. Shri Bhagavan Vaj. Bahuni me vyatitani janamani tavarjuna tanyaham veda saravani nattvamavetat parantapaha. Arjuna, you and I have taken many births. Many times we were here together. And we didn't come years apart. We came together many times. The problem is, I know you forgot. You have forgotten who you really are. And this is why I referred to the 5 sentiments in worshiping God that you need to reconnect with God. And to reconnect, you have to start at the lowest level. You know, we had a policy in the Mandir. Anybody come and want to be helpful in the Mandir, the first thing we hand them is a scrubbing brush and a toilet bowl cleaner. That is where you're going to start. Say, but I'm a cook. I don't care what you could cook. If you want to be a part of it, you'll be a part of everything. You can't be a selective part. You'll be a part, from that you'll graduate to wash leaf. From then you'll graduate to wash pot. From there you will graduate to turn a pot. You might get a chance to turn a pot. You might get a chance to learn to knead flour. But by the time we finish with you in a 10-15 year period, you could manage this all by yourself. So it's the same thing with devotion. I use this word loosely because we always translate bhakti to mean devotion. Bhakti doesn't mean that. Gyan does not mean knowledge. And sannyas doesn't mean renunciate. Those are the words that were given to us as what they mean. Are we understand what I'm saying? They give us those meanings, and we just take it and run in with it. Bhakti means devotion. But there are 5 different kinds of devotion. Which one you're talking about? So we will leave it for that, at that point for the time being. He further goes on to tell Arjun, Ajopi sannabhyayatma bhutanagmishwarupishan prakritim swamadisthaya sambhavam yatma mayaya. Arjun, I am the one who is unborn. Now, Lord Krishna makes that very clear. We celebrating Krishna birthday. We celebrating Ram birthday. Ram have no birthday. Krishna have no birthday. He is the unborn one. That is the first point. And because of the decline of, let us say, Sanatana Dharma, because of that decline, he himself comes, subjecting himself to his own Maya. Now, this thing about form God and formless God, in the Upanishads, there is a verse that says, Dvaivakya Brahmano Rupe Maratomachaiva Amurtanam, that there are 2 forms of God. One is the formless Brahman and one is the personal form. Both are dimensions of the same one divinity. The difference is our form, this form that we have, we were created from what? From material energy. The Supreme Lord is Yogamaya, something totally different. So we could never be the same. One is materially created, one is spiritually created. 2 totally different things. In the Padma Puran, there is a verse that says, Yastu niraguna ityukta shastreshu jagadishwara prakritehe yasanyukte gunehi natpamuchyate. That when the scriptures describe God as being formless, you know, there's a verse we sing for Ramjanam, Bhaya Pragata Kripala, Dina Dayala, Kausilya, Hitakari. And there's another chant to it, Jai Jai Suranayaka, Jana Sukadaya, Pranatapala Bhagavanta. When they talk about that formless God, what they're talking about? The scriptures have said, God doesn't have a form. God has no form. Yes, he has a form, but he does not have a form. The form that we're talking about, if God have a form, then he go make mistake. God is not subjected to that. So when the scriptures talk about God, they talk about the formless one who appears in the universe and carries no trait that is affected by karma.
Yeah.
So that is the definition for God, according to the scriptures.
Tulsidas has this verse, we all know it, Bipradhenu Surasantahit, Leen Manuj Avatar, Nija Ichha Nirmitatanu, Maya Gun Gopal. Yeah. Same concept.
Same concept.
Yeah, Tulsidas.
He comes for a purpose.
Yeah.
But he's free from the blemishes.
He is not subject to Maya.
Not subject to, he creates the Maya.
Yeah.
So the Lord goes on to say, Yada yada hi dharamasya glanirabhavati bharata Abhyattanam adharamasya taratmanam srijamyaham. Whenever there is a decline in this dharma and the rise in adharma, unrighteousness, I embody myself, Arjuna. Paritranaya sadunam vinashaya chaduskritam dharma sanstapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. Now, why do I descend upon the earth? To protect the good. I've always said that. There was never a time in the world when it only had bad people. It always have a good one somewhere. And to destroy these wicked people. Now there's a reason he chose to come and do it. You think in the Ramayana, you think Ram couldn't tell Hanuman, when you reach in Lanka, wipe out Lanka for me and come back.
Yeah.
No, he couldn't give Hanuman that power. No, let me rephrase that. Hanuman had the ability to do it, but there was a reason he couldn't do it. And that is that reason we will deal with. Now, when we talk about these descent, the coming of the Lord into this universe, now, all have divine powers. Hanuman had divine powers. All have divine powers. They are all perfect. They are all complete. Now, for the Lord to come into the universe, in this physical world that we are in, what name do we call him when he comes? How do we call the descent of God into the world? We call him an avatar. Right. Now, there are 4 different types of avatars. One, Avesh avatar. Avesh avatar is the Lord giving devotees special powers. Tulsidas is an Avesh avatar. Now, then, even though then you have Prabhava avatar, where the Lord himself descends in a personal form and he displays some divine powers. Not all, some. And this avatar, Prabhava avatar, is of 2 kinds, where the Lord manifests for a few moments. As we say, Prahalad was praying and God appeared to him. That is Prabhava avatar. Just for a split second. And then he completes his work and then he departs. And then he remains, the second one, he remains for many years. Vyasa. Vyasa was down here for a long time. The third avatar is Vaibhava avatar, like Matsya, Kurma, Varaha. And the fourth one, Paravast avatar, Ram and Krishna. They were complete. The total package. So when we talk avatar, people think it's something small. There are so much different explanations to the word avatar. But we have accepted it, like you say earlier on. When the British interfere with the books, they put a meaning that they could understand. That is not really the meaning of the word.
But this principle, this issue we are dealing with now, these verses, Yada Yada Hi Dharmasya, some of the best known verses of Bhagavad Gita. And I think it's very important that our viewers and all who study Hinduism get a good grasp, Panditji, of this idea of Bhagwan taking a form, assuming a form, coming into the world to deal with issues that we face. This makes Hinduism very, very unique in its outlook, in that in our hour of difficulty, the Lord himself comes.
Right. Now, chapter 8 says, Binashaya chaduskritam, to destroy these wicked souls, wicked bodies. Now, who were the wicked bodies? Kans, Ravan, Hiranyakashipu. They were, at one point in time, they were divine souls. And hence the reason no human couldn't kill them.
No one can kill them.
So
They were too
why
powerful.
he says, I have to come to protect the good and destroy them. because I understand what they are about.
Panditji, at this point, we'll have to take our break, and then on this very important principle, we will continue. You are viewing Bhagavad Gita discussions. We will resume momentarily. Jai Shri Krishna. You are viewing Bhagavad Gita discussions. We are on chapter 4 at that very important verse number 7. We now resume. Panditji.
So, whenever this dharma is in trouble, Lord Krishna is saying to Arjuna, that is the time I descend upon this world to protect the good and to destroy those evil souls that were once divine. Janma karamacha me divyam me vamayo veti tatvatah tyakta deham punara janamane mamiti. So Arjuna, those who know of my divine birth and action in true light, when they depart from this world, Arjuna, they merge into me, never to come back again. Now, Manu says, Nat kashyate vidyate devo nashilayam mritasya cha bhavehi vidyate devas tasmad bhavam samachare. God does not reside in wood. God does not reside in stone. He resides in the heart. That is where God is. We have been looking for God in the wrong place. Only when we reach chapter 18, verse 61 or 62, we realize where Lord Krishna says to Arjuna, Ishvara sarva bhutanam hridesh Arjun tishtati, that I reside in the heart of each and every one. So, when that Supreme Lord descends upon the earth and He performs work, God doesn't work. What God does is called Leela. What human being does is called work. It's a big difference. So the Leelas that is performed by Lord Krishna, by all the different avatars, is to teach humanity how to go about their life, how to live in a material world and still be spiritual. Bhita raga bhaya krodha manamaya mamupashrita bahavo jnana tapasa putamad. But to realize the Supreme, there are certain things that we have to give up. Greed, passion, fear, anger. Purify yourself, Arjuna, through this jnana tapasa, the fire of knowledge. You have to learn. You have to be taught. And then you would merge into me. Now, Sant Goswami Tulsidas says, Prema bhagati jala binu ragurayi abhiyantara malaka bahuna jai. Tulsidas writes, without devotion to Lord, the mind cannot be washed clean. Only devotion could do it. Only bhakti could do it. Let me use the word devotion, bhakti. Bhakti could do it. Now, ye yata mam prapadyante tastataiva vajamyaham mama varatu manu varatante manushya parta sarvashaha. However you choose to identify yourself with me, Arjuna, that is the form that I will use to shower my grace and blessings upon you. However you visualize God, that is how God will be. Now, whereas other religions have a specific concept on what God is, we don't have that specific concept. We say Tat Twamasi. Whatever you think God is, that is what God is. If you say God is the master of this universe, you're trying to limit the power of God. How are you going to do that? You cannot. God is Ananta. And this is why great scholars up to now cannot define the word Ananta. Whatever you think it is beyond that. You know, there's a thing they say, neti.
Neti.
It's not this, it's not that, it's not that.
Because you cannot identify the totality of God using words or even concepts.
No
one can. Which is why even in Hinduism, you find there are so many treatises on worship of God. So many various scriptures. There is no one book, there is no one form. But Pandit, that also can create, when there is a lack of understanding, difficulties for devotees. Because there has to be, in the mind of some form has to be greater than another. And in Hindu thinking, that doesn't exist.
No.
However you see God.
You know, there's a mantra we say, Puranamada Puranamidam. What does that mean? From the whole you take some. The sum is still whole and the whole remains the whole.
Yeah.
Nothing changes.
Yeah.
Now, this verse, there is a word here called Bhajamyaham. Ye yatam ram prapadyante tatateva bhajamyaham. In my research to find Bhajamyaham, the best explanation I found for it was in the Valmiki Ramayana, where it literally means to reciprocate. Literally it means that. But in the context of the Ramayana, Valmiki wrote where Ram was talking to Hanuman, and Ram says, Ekaikasyu pararasya pranadasya mite kapi sheshahasye paranama bhavami hriniyato vayam. This is after everything was finished and Ram became the king of Ayodhya. He was talking to Hanuman one day and he says to Hanuman, he says, "Oh Hanuman, to release myself," this is Ram saying, "from the service you have performed for me, right? I shall offer my life to you. But for all the devotional service done by you, I will remain eternally indebted." And this is why I say, bhakti means eternally indebted to God. Doesn't mean devotion. So when you go, listen, you come in the Mandir Sunday morning, so you're a bhakta. What happened from Monday to Saturday? You are eternally indebted. This is an ongoing thing until you become one with it. He puts you through all the different trial and tribulation until bhajamyaham, until you become one with it. The Ramayana further says, we'll go later on in that, but Lord Krishna now says that when kangshatam karamanam siddham yajanta ihadevata kshipramahi manushe loke siddhara bhavati karmaja. When we come into this world and we get after education, we all want to be successful at what we do. Everybody wants to be a success. To be a success, how do you do that? Now, we worship the devatas, but this is what was told to us. And when we worship the devatas, we will be successful. Chaturavanyam maya sreshtam gunakarama vivagasha tasya karatarabhimama Vedya karataram abhyayam. He says the human being was created into 4 groups. Everyone has a responsibility. There is no responsibility of one group to take advantage of another group. It was never designed for that purpose. It was designed that the 4 have to work in harmony. And if they work in harmony, then that Jiv Atma realizes the Brahman. When we go back to the Ramayana and we talk about Ram going back to the celestial, who did he carry with him? Only Pandits? He carried every life form that lived in Ayodhya. So it's not about discrimination. Hinduism does not discriminate, and I will challenge anybody on that. Hinduism is the coming together. Namam karama nilimpante nami karama pale smriha iti meyo bijanati karma bhirana sabadyati. This karma which I perform, Arjun, I am not tainted by karma. I am not affected by karma. I am not bounded by karma. This is why he comes into this universe, because of Yoga Maya, just to teach people. He has no karma to burn out. Eva magyata kritama karama purvairapi mumukshavi kuru karameva tasma tvam purva purvataram kritam. The ancient seekers, the rishis and the munis of the past, they knew they wanted to free themselves from the bondage of this world. And to free themselves, they perform different types of actions, different type of karma. Kim karama kim karaveti karavapyopya mohita tatate karama pravakshyami yajagyatva mokshase shubhat. But even the great rishis and the munis, they have been a little confused into what is karma and what is inaction. It's not something that anybody could just simply explain it to you and you go with it. It's a little tricky, it's a little complicated. And this is why Lord Krishna says to Arjun, I will teach it to you to make sure that you are free from evil. I will teach you the right thing, Arjun. Karamano hyapi bodhabyam cha vikaramana akaranamashta bodhabyam gahana karamano gati. The human needs to understand first what is right action and what is forbidden action. Now, if you take that literally, it means that in whichever country you are born in, there are certain laws that you must live by, according to the law of the land. The law of the land is supposed to be good karma, good action. And if you break that, then you go get yourself in problems. It's called forbidden action. You shouldn't do it. But you must be able to understand the difference between the two. And Lord Krishna further says to Arjun, Karamanya karama pashyeda karamani cha karamaya sabuddhiman manushyesu sayukta krit samakarama krit. He who sees inaction in action and action in inaction is a wise man. Whatever has to be done, you do it. It literally means that whatever you do not seek any reward for what you have done. You do it because it is the right thing to do.
And that will be treated as inaction.
That is inaction.
Because it does not bring a fruit.
No, you want nothing in. So that is inaction. Even though it's an action, it is inaction because there is
motive,
no fruit, no motive, no intention behind it. Yasya sarave samaramba kama sankalpa varjitaha jnanagni dagda karamanam tamahu panditam mudaha. Now, those actions that is devoid of the desire for rewards, they are the ones whose karma will be burnt away through knowledge. Such a person, the saints and sages call a wise man. Tyakta karma pala sangha nitya tripto nirashraya karamanvi pravittopi naiva kimchit karoti saha. Abandon, Arjun. Don't give up. Abandon the fruit of action. Be contented in this world. Depend on nobody for anything. Engage yourself. Perform your karma. And such a person, even though he performs karma, he literally does nothing. Because he has no motive for doing it. He's doing it for the love of humanity. Nirashirya nachiltatma tyakta sarva parigraha sharirama kevalama karama kurvanapnoti kilabasham. Keep the mind under control. Don't hope for anything. Abandon all possessions. Perform karma. By the body alone, Arjun, you will incur no sin. Now, people have said to me that how you could abandon all your worldly possessions. Are you planning to carry it when you die?
I think abandoning worldly possession
It
would
means
mean
the responsibilities.
no, an attachment to it.
Well,
It's here for our use.
well, if you still have to give it up.
True. My understanding of it would be you are encouraged in the same way as you give up, you renounce the fruit of action, even with your possessions. You recognize, like you're rightly saying, that it is not yours ultimately. You will leave it. So even your attachment to these things, you have to give it up.
How long do you think it will take to give up worldly possessions? 25 years. It will take 25 years. It will take 25 years. Serious.
I am not clear on
Right.
I mean, because
Because we believe in a concept that the first 25 years of our life, we are students. The second 25 years of our life, we are householders. The third 25 years in our life, we are preparing to
no,
go.
but even while I am a householder and I'm developing wealth, I'm developing resources that my family will need. It doesn't mean that I necessarily have to be attached to it to such a way that I can't walk away from it.
Simple. That is what Gita is saying to do.
So that while we perform, while we are in this world, we are in a sense not of this world.
Yeah.
Because we need to develop this idea of renunciation, not of action, but of the fruit of action.
Yadvityalabha santushta dvandatito vimatsaraha samasiddha vasiddha kritavapi nibadyati. Be contented with what you obtain in this world. Free yourself from the pair of opposites. Free yourself from envy. Be balanced in your mind when there is success, when there is failure. And if you can achieve these things, Arjun, such a person who performs karma is not bounded by karma. Gata sangasya muktasya jnanavastita chetasa yagyaya charata karama samagram praviyaliyati. One who is unattached is liberated, with his mind absorbed in knowledge, performing work for yajna alone. His entire karma melts away. Do it as a service to God. It doesn't mean you mustn't have. I have never read in a Hindu scripture yet that God said I must die poor.
Correct.
I am not going to die poor, my friend. Sorry. I may not be. My interpretation of wealth and your interpretation of wealth are two totally different things. My wealth is my library. That is my wealth. Other people have different.
But this is an important point. We have some people trying to project Hinduism as suggesting that Hindus don't believe in wealth.
Really?
Yeah, and it's a misapplication of the principle.
Well, I've never gone in the grocery with flowers and they accept it as payment yet.
But people put flowers in the RDA.
Well, I have no problem with that. I have no problem with that one. Brahmarpanam Brahmavir Brahmaganau Brahmane Hutam Brahmaivati Nagantabyam Brahma Karma Samadhinaha. Now, when you perform karma for the sake of yajna, it means that everything is an offering to the Supreme Brahman. That is what Lord Krishna is talking about. That everything becomes an offering. So if everything becomes an offering to the Supreme Brahman, isn't your possessions an offering to the Supreme Brahman?
Yeah.
So give it up. Then it becomes easy to give it up. Because you see it, you have had this in your possession.
Just how Bharat managed the kingdom without a sense of ownership, almost as a trustee for Sri Ram.
But
and when Sri Ram came, there was no issue in giving it up.
Right. But you see, the difference was, had Bharat stepped on the throne and sat down, the outcome would have been different.
Yeah.
Because he would have developed an attachment to this comfort. And he says, no, this is not mine, so I don't even want to taste it. I stay away from it. I hold it in custody.
Yeah.
And when the time is right, I will give it up. The same thing I say, it will take 25 years. But if you program yourself and you train yourself, when the time comes for you to release it, it doesn't affect you. Daivame vapade yagyam yogina padiyupasati brahmagna vapade yagyam yagyanaino pajuhubati. Some of the yogis have spoken about offerings to the devatas. Some offer the self, penance, in the fire of Brahman. Shrotadin indriyanyanye sanyaganeshu juhuvati shabdadin vishayananya indriyaganeshu juhuvati. Some offer the ability to hear. They ain't go to ears and point in the hawan kun. They want to hear no evil. Some people want to see no evil. Some people offer their voice. They want to speak no evil. Different things they have all done, Arjun. Some have offered their senses. They do not want to become contaminated by anybody. They live alone in the jungle. All these different methods, it works, but it doesn't work for everybody. Everybody has to develop their own system where they can work with what they are acceptable to them. Sarava indriya karamani prana karamani chapari atma sanyamayo agnau juhvati jnanadipati. Because everything that is done must end with one thing. May I ask you a question, Pandit? If you're home in your house and out of the blue, the entire country, electricity goes, everything becomes pitch dark. Every single thing. Wouldn't you get up to go look for a candle or a diya to light it?
Yeah.
Right. And if when you get up and you're going to the kitchen where you know in the drawer have the candle or the diya, you bounce your foot. You will find the diya, you'll light it, you check your foot to make sure what damage is done. If 1 week later, the same incident happens, whole country, blackout, and you get up to go in the kitchen again, would you bounce your foot in the same place?
It's unlikely.
Unlikely. Why? Because you have learned from it.
Listen.
This is what the Gita says. Atma sannayo magnau juhvati jnanadipati. Whatever experience you have in life, learn from it. Develop knowledge from it. And if you could do that, Arjun, drava yagyastapo yagya, yoga yagyastata swadhyaya yagyana yagyashta yatayaha sanshita brataha. Some people offer their wealth. I have read, I've seen when I was traveling, people, rich people die and they leave everything for a dog. They give their own family it. They leave it for charity. People do different things. It works for them. Hinduism doesn't condemn anybody for what they do. Some offer their wealth. Some offer self-denial. Some offer sacred study. Some offer just doing yagya, hawan, all the time. Apane johati pranam, pranapanam tatapare, pranapana gati rodva, pranayama parayana. Some offer what is called pranayam, control of breathing, how to control your breathing. Some people have mastered it. Some still trying. Some very happy with the 21 breaths God give them every day and they're good with that. Be grateful for it. Everything is just to tap into this source, this energy that exists in us. People have tried different things to tap into that. Yoga is now a universal phenomenon. To tap into this energy. Apare niyatahara prana praneshu juhuvati Saravapyete yagya vido yagya kshitaya kalamashaha. But the most powerful one is the control of food. Control food. If you could control food, you will have all sins destroyed in yagya. People believe that you could sit down with a mala and chant mantra whole day. Chanting mantra whole day, the best example of that I have found is Kabir Das. When Kabir Das say, Mala perata yoga pira pirana manako per. Karaka manaka dadike manaka per. You chanting mantra all the time. Right? But yet in your mind you're still wicked. So what chanting the mantra going to do for you? You have to control yourself first. And if you cannot control yourself, all the show things that we do, in the end, they mean absolutely nothing to us. We get nothing for it, just wasting time and energy. Now, when we control this food, we control the prana, the energies that we have. And all our sins will be destroyed. All the wrong that we have done are going to be destroyed. Yagya shishta mrita bhojo yanti brahma sanatanam nayamalokastva yagyasya kutonya kurva sattvama. Those who eat the remnants of yagya go to the eternal Brahman. Now, what is the nectar we talk about? Now, the remnants of yagya, people don't understand what that means. People think remnants, we always associate remnant to be leftover. Remnant doesn't mean that. In our system, whenever we cook food, 5 mouthfuls of food is fed to the fire. Pranaya nama, apanaya nama, udanaya nama, vyanaya nama. 5 mantras are offered and you offer this food to the fire. The rest of food that remain back, that is called remnant, because you first offer it to God. And that, when we partake of that food, that is what helps us. This world has no place in it for people who are not prepared to make self-sacrifices to achieve what they want to achieve. You cannot achieve things in the world. I'm not going to talk about the world. You're not going to achieve things in this country by the end of a barrel. That is not the way to achieve things. This entire country is in fear. People frightened to even pray to. That is not the way to achieve it. You have to make self-sacrifices to get what you want. And if you make the self-sacrifices, I mean, how much penance we have gone through, from eating rice alone, to send our children to school, to educate them, and then somebody, some illiterate moron, could just pick up a gun and blow him away and take what he have. Something has to be definitely wrong with this system. But criminals who take in what people hard earned is not a crime. Recently I saw where a pharmacist in Aranguez got killed.
Yeah.
You wouldn't believe 1 week ago I was in that pharmacy. And we had such a nice little conversation. Nice fella, simple, very soft-spoken. Lose his life for what? All what his parents is going through. All the energy and all the time that they have spent for the children to achieve something, and somebody just takes it away just like that for nothing. And you still telling me, I ain't care what no politician tell me now, those. If they're not prepared to support the death penalty, you are forcing people to take the law into their own hands. And that is a dangerous road to go. When people have to take the law in their own hand. Sanatan Dharma talks about self-discipline. How much self-discipline you could have when everything you are working for is plundered by somebody else for no reason. Lord Krishna says to Arjun, Evam bahubida yagya bitata brahmano mukhe karamajan vidditan saravan eva gyatva vimokshase. There are many yagyas which are prescribed in the scriptures, in the Vedas. Now, we can, what did I show you and I together, cannot do Ashwamedha.
I can't.
I am telling you, two of we together can't do it. And I'll give you a better deal. All the pundits in Trinidad, all sit down together, cannot do Ashwamedha. Now, so what it says, there are different yagyas in the Vedas. Right? Go through the scriptures, find out the one that is appealing to you, and that is the yagya you perform. Right? But how you do it? You have to understand all is born out of karma. Everything is karma. Karma doesn't exempt anybody. Shreyana dabhya maya jagya jnana yagya parandapa sarva karma khilam aparta jnane parisamapaye. Knowledge is greater than wealth. All karma ends in knowledge. So, what he's literally saying, start off simple. And as you grow and you develop, your thirst for knowledge will also develop with it. And when your thirst for knowledge develops, then you could free yourself from this bondage. Now, Lord Krishna puts forward here in verse 34 a very interesting concept when he says to Arjuna, Tadavidi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarkshinaha. How do you get this knowledge? How do you get this teaching? This teaching is not written down in a book. This teaching comes by bowing, by being humble. This teaching comes by asking questions. This teaching comes by rendering service to the wise. And when you find the right person, he will teach you, he will impart you. Let me give you a simple example, Pandit. When I was growing up, I grew up in the era where there was still 2-3 dozen Pandits from India living here. Pandits who came from India. And we had to choose a guru. We were given the choice to choose, fortunately. And we made our choice. And then before the guru came to our home to initiate us, you know what he did? He invited us home by him. And he told us what is expected of us and what is expected of him towards us.
Establishing the parameters of the relation.
That's right. And from there, if we agree, we will go
forward.
This is what the Gita teaches us. Render service to somebody who you think is wise. When you ask question, you're going to know if he's wise or he's a fool. You know, there's a beautiful story in the Hindi book where a guy went in a pet shop to buy a parrot. And he asked the shopkeeper, well, how much is the parrot? He said, well, $5,000. He said, $5,000 for a parrot? He said, if you don't believe me, ask the parrot. So the guy really asked the parrot, is your price $5,000? And the parrot said, isme kya shak hai? What is there to doubt? So he said, this is a very intelligent bird. So he buy the parrot. So when he go home, everything he say, the parrot said the same thing. Isme kya shak hai? Isme kya shak hai? And then finally in the end, in the last line of the katha, he says, I had to be a real donkey to buy a parrot like that. And the parrot said, isme kya shak hai? What is there to doubt? You have to be a fool.
Panditji, we are approaching the end of this program time. We would have to stop at this verse. You are viewing Bhagavad Gita discussions. This is chapter 4,
verse
our
34.
program number 9, verse 34. If you have any questions or any comments, please call. You can call us 652-1043 or WhatsApp only 784-9880. On behalf of Pandit Vikram, myself, the International Gita Forum Caribbean, and IETV, we thank you for viewing, and we meet again in our next episode. Jai Shri Krishna.
Jai Shri Krishna.